Right, this is to go over the homework assignment on proofs. Please read Rhetorical Analysis, A Brief Guide for Writers, pages 251 to 252, and pages 253 to 267. The first very brief text is an open letter published in a local Alabama newspaper in 1963, of course, April 12th, 1963, written by 8 white clergymen who opposed the civil rights marches. The longer open letter, pages 253 to 267, was written by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in response to their opposition. Read these texts twice and take some notes for your study. The second text, Letter from Birmingham Jail, is worth very careful study. It's one of the best arguments, certainly in American writing, and perhaps, I don't know, I think it's just one of the best ever. It's extremely well done. All right, and following that study, please read Rhetorical Analysis, A Brief Guide for Writers, pages 115 to 117 and 123 to 129. Pages 115 to 117 lay out the organization of the classic argument, and it tells you what sections go in a classical argument, in what order, and it gives you a kind of definition and description of each of the parts, which is a very good thing to know. Pages 123 to 129 actually lay out the specific organization for Letter from Birmingham Jail. It's the sample analysis, structure, and the classical template in Letter from Birmingham Jail. So that's a really nice application. That way you can go back to a text that you have read, the Letter from Birmingham Jail, and you can look at how Longacre and Walker have categorized the sections of this letter into the classic template and what they have to say about it, which is a really, really good piece of analysis. And you'll want to read these again. Read them twice, take some notes for your study so that you have a very good handle on this information. Now, more specifically, study King's proofs in paragraphs 12 through 22. This is on pages 256 to 259, right? So 256 at the top. One of the basic points in your statement is that the action that I and my associates have taken in Birmingham is untimely. And this proceeds on for, 10 paragraphs or so, till the top of 259. We should never forget that everything Adolf Hitler did in Germany was legal, and everything the Hungarian freedom fighters did in Hungary was illegal. It was illegal to aid and comfort a Jew in Hitler's Germany. Even so, I am sure that had I lived in Germany at the time, I would have aided and comforted my Jewish brothers. If today I lived in a communist country where certain principles dear to Christian faith are suppressed, I would openly advocate disobeying that country's anti-religious laws. So what Longacre and Walker are directing you to is Martin Luther King Jr.'s proofs for why we should, shall we say, practice civil disobedience. King's Letter from Birmingham Jail is one of the most taught texts in the undergraduate curriculum. You find it anthologized in practically any text or book or collection intended for first-year students. It's somewhere in there, and somebody ought to be teaching it. And people often do, because it's of such quality that there are many, many, many lessons to be learned from the study of this text. King's argument is one of the most famous arguments in modern American history. The argument that God's law triumphs over human law. That's a classic, yeah. And human law that advances white supremacy is not only an unjust law, but it's also against God's law. Now, as you go through these paragraphs 12 through 22, also note the other arguments that we see. We had a previous lesson on epikairemes and enthymemes, and specifically the enthymeme was supposed to be a supporting leg to the argument, and the epikaireme was supposed to be the longer chain. So what I would like you to do in preparation for this assignment, go through paragraphs 12 through 22. Make a list of the enthymemes in paragraphs 12 through 22. There's quite possibly one per paragraph. And study and reflect on these. What among the enthymemes impresses you the most? What among the enthymemes surprises you most? What did you not expect to find there? And then to complete the homework, begin with your list of enthymemes that you see in paragraphs 12 through 22. You can just bullet point it, that's fine. And then for number 2 of your homework, in one paragraph, maybe 2, reflect on the enthymemes that you see in this list. Reflect on them. What do they mean to you? What do you think about them? What do you think about the selection of enthymemes that appear in that list? What do you think about the organization of King's paragraphs, the way that he moves from one point to another point? What do King's rhetorical choices for content, which is the things that he says, and his rhetorical choice for organization, the order that he puts those things in, what do his rhetorical choices tell you about the situation that he was faced with? Right? Famously, it's called the letter from Birmingham jail. Why? Because Dr. King was arrested. And why was he arrested? For protesting against white supremacist policies such as racial segregation, for example. In a society in which the good things are exclusive for only a certain group and other cheap imitation things are reserved for people who have been designated lesser. King, very famously, he's not the only one, but he's extremely famous for protesting against white supremacy, against segregation, against the idea that people are better because they are white and people are worse because they are black. It is that basic, black and white. So given, I mean, you just think about the rhetorical situation. He is a black man, and it is 1963. In 1963, the only roles given to African Americans were the roles of the dumb guy, the roles of the guy who pushes the broom. You look at any Hollywood movie, the black guy is the threat, the black guy is uncontrollable, the black guy is somehow more beast-like than human in those depictions. In public schools, children are being taught that people of European descent are more intelligent than the rest of the world. Pretty commonly, that was part of the curriculum. Pretty commonly, any information that anybody could get about what it meant to be from Africa was tainted with this notion of racism. How do you speak as a black person to a white world? I suppose that's where you go from. Okay, last bit. In one paragraph, maybe 2, discuss which enthymeme surprises you the most, or maybe which one impresses you the most. And if you like, this is kind of optional, do you see a current rhetorical situation in which this enthymeme would be effective? anything that's going on now, can you just, I don't know, insert enthymeme X from the letter from Birmingham jail? What do you think? I'm interested to know what you think. And why are we doing this lesson now? Because it's kind of the cap of the semester, how an argument is put all the way together. And I would be remiss in my duty if I did not share with you the crown jewel of rhetoric. Enjoy.